Good afternoon, all, and welcome to Deloitte's February webinar on Future of Controls, Advancing Your Controls Ecosystem. I would like to take the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Kieran Tracy, and I'm the Future of Controls leader here at Deloitte Ireland. And I would like to take the chance also to introduce my two colleagues who will be presenting this afternoon also. So Mesom Lada is a manager in our Future of Controls team. Some of you will be very familiar with Mesom, who has led a number of controls advisory projects around areas not only including financial and operational controls, but also in relation to privacy, ESG, and similar areas. So we look forward to Mesom talking us through some of those concepts later today. We also have my colleague Ritika Thakur, who is a manager in our Future of Controls team also. Ritika leads our technology enablement service offering, and we're very happy to have Ritika on the call today. Just a few pieces of housekeeping. This session will be recorded, so you will have the opportunity to watch back or share with some of your colleagues. So that's going to happen. We will have some poll questions throughout the session also, so that'll give you an opportunity to provide your own input as we all seek to learn more about what the future of controls will be and what best practices we see in common across the industry. Also, there will be the opportunity to ask some questions. So we will have a panel at the end of the session today, and we'll be very happy to take questions from the floor, from our attendees today, and try and answer them as best we can. If there's a couple of them there that we can't answer today, we'll certainly get back to you or through the sharing of some of the slides. So with that, I would like to jump to the next slide, which is going to talk a little bit about the topics we have under discussion today. I will take you through a recap on the Deloitte Future of Controls vision. This is something that's very close to my own heart and that we have been working on for the past number of years, and we're seeing lots of traction both in the market nationally and internationally through some of the initiatives that we have been running with our clients. Mesom is going to take us through an agile approach to risk assessment and control selection, which really focuses on identifying the risks that matter to clients and then focusing on investing the controls capital around addressing those risks in an effective and an efficient way. And he's got some interesting comments to say on that whole methodology, which doesn't cost a lot for organizations to implement, but it's really insightful in terms of that approach. Then we're going to have Ritika, who's going to give us a demonstration of an approach around one of the most common challenges that I see with clients, and that is around spreadsheets. We all love spreadsheets, as typically as accountants do, but they do certainly bring an amount of complexity, amount of risk, and amount of challenge to our work on a day-to-day basis. And Ritika has worked quite successfully with a solution called Alteryx, which some of you may be familiar with. And she's going to take us through a demo on how that tool can successfully automate spreadsheets, schedule spreadsheets that happen recurring, and take a huge amount of the manual lift out of the equation. It's a real sophisticated tool, which we're delighted to present on today. I would point out that we are not vendors of Alteryx. We just want to use this as an example of some of the technologies that are out there in the ecosystem at the moment that can add to your controls toolkit and make life easier and allow you to manage risk in a more sophisticated and efficient way. At that stage, we will should be almost up to the hour at that stage, and we will then have a panel discussion with some Q&A from the floor. So I hope to see those come through via the Q&A box, which should be on the bottom ribbon of the screen in front of you. And then we'll have some wrap up afterwards. So I suppose one of the things that we will be seeking to do as part of this series of Future of Controls webinars is identify topics that are of interest to you as our clients, our friends and our attendees, and bring those back to you with some Deloitte subject matter expertise who will be able to talk us through some of the challenges, what are the opportunities for efficiency and to improve the quality of controls, and what technology solutions are out there to support us in that journey. Before I kick into the recap on the Deloitte Future Controls vision, we have a poll question just to start, hopefully getting you guys engaged this afternoon. So first question. Something that's very topical at the moment around technology and technology enablement. And the question is, to what extent is technology embedded in your current controls framework? I suppose what we're talking about is GRCs, tooling to support sitting on top of some of the basics, automated controls versus manual controls. So what extent is your organizations embedding these technologies within your business? And of course, we'll address the question of AI later this morning as well, and looking forward to seeing what that does for the industry. So please answer the first poll question. Okay, have we got some answers, Siobhan? Okay, so we do have interesting, lots of people in the middle ground, kind of a medium investment in technology enablement, somewhat low, quite a decent chunk with low, very few with none, and very few with high. So an awful lot of people around the middle ground. And I think what we might be seeing here is people using using existing technologies and tools to operate their controls framework and to deliver their controls objectives, but actually seeing an awful lot of opportunity out there at the moment in the ecosystem in terms of some of the technologies that are evolving and that are coming to the fore in what we see on a day-to-day basis. Okay, thank you for that. With that, Siobhan, if you could jump to the next slide, please. So I just want to highlight some of the mega trends that are influencing industry in general, and certainly the risk and controls journeys that we are all on. I suppose what we've seen and what we continue to see on a regular basis is a significant increase in regulations and risk-based regulations. I think lots of organizations at the minute are dealing with CSRD reporting, which is going to come into play next year and the year after. We're seeing the AI Act coming out of the European Union. We're seeing DORA legislation on top of lots of other pieces of legislation that we have been through. It doesn't seem to be slowing down. It just seems to be a case that more and more regulations are popping onto our agendas, bringing more and more risk and the need then for control. So that's why one of the drivers around future of controls, we have seen since COVID a real escalation in digital transformation, where organizations are investing in remote working, are investing in technology enablement, are investing in more sophisticated ERPs and workplace solutions. And that does give us both risk and opportunity. Risk to address in terms of our technology ecosystem, and then the opportunity to grow and develop and deliver more products and services to our clients. With that comes a need for further controls. I think the responsible business and the era of the consumer and the talent retention piece can all be kind of entwined together, where we're seeing more and more people in terms of stakeholders, consumers, and employees take a look at organizations to understand, are they the type of organization I want to deal with, I want to work with? Are they good at managing their risks around sustainability, around being good places to work? And what controls then can we sit on top of those as organizations to attract, retain, and serve our stakeholders, our employees, and our consumers? Of course, data as an asset is one of those that's been on our agenda for some time. We've all been through the pain in some regards of the GDPR regulations. Having said that, at the moment, we've never had as much data in our businesses, but at the same time, we will never have so little data in our businesses, because that's just growing. And seeing the risk and opportunity around data and the ability to use that data for the benefit of the organization within the parameters of the regulations such as GDPR and what's going to come through the AI regulations. So lots of these factors are coming together. In addition to that, we've got cost pressures coming from industries, across industries, and increased interest rates and increases in inflation, all bringing a cost perspective to this. And I suppose with the growing need for control, there's ultimately a growing cost associated with serving those controls and bringing the mindset. And Mason is going to bring it through a nice methodology around getting to the core risks that matter, and a methodology around that which can help us to reduce the cost of control ultimately, and at the same time serve these multiple stakeholders and multiple requirements. So if we move to the next slide, I just want to spend a little bit of time on what is the future of controls. And I suppose our philosophy and our vision has been built around three levers, which are on the left-hand side here. The first one is around reimagining the controls framework, really focusing on the risks that matter to the organization, not just the risks that have been documented to date, but really taking a look at those in bite-sized chunks using agile methodologies to understand what are the risks we've been addressing to date. What are the types of controls that are available to us, and what are the optionalities around those controls, prioritizing systemization and technology enablement, but not necessarily prioritizing investment where we don't have those to date. So that's ultimately using what we already have. The second piece talks to, and this is an area I find really interesting, is the operating model, the next generation operating model of control, really putting a focus across organizations on the policies, procedures, your frameworks, the GRC tooling that you're investing in, and what are the upside of investigating in really sophisticated GRC tooling and smart evidencing. Moving away from, we've probably largely moved away from hard copy sign-offs in terms of evidence, but what we are seeing is, a kind of a hybrid manual controls becoming quite common in terms of email evidence, etc., which can be tedious, error-prone, and difficult to track and trace. So having smart evidencing methodologies, we've seen some real good demos of GRC tools recently where the actual GRC tooling themselves can go into ERPs, extract data, bring it into the GRC, and that stores the evidence on your behalf. So we're seeing an awful lot of escalation around there. Ratika is going to the next lever, which is the control technology ecosystem, and taking a look at what is the power or the art of the possible in terms of that technology. Ratika is going to bring us through a good example, which is really going to focus on a basic fundamental that's in every business, which is spreadsheets. We need them, we love them. They bring us challenges. They can be difficult, cumbersome, and costly to implement and operate. So Ratika is going to bring us through an example there. I'm pretty sure, if not already, that we're going to get a question on artificial intelligence and what's that going to do for the controls journey. For me, right now, I haven't seen a silver bullet in terms of what AI can do, but it will, I'm sure, in time, certainly make our lives a bit easier and make the controls process a bit more efficient. It'll never completely adopt the responsibility of the control owners, the control operators, but it should certainly make lives easier. We have seen some use cases, starting to be stood up across clients where combinations of artificial intelligence and RPA have been coming together to kind of get to the root of what are the reconciling items, what are the challenges, or what are the blips that we're seeing in the data, and then focusing our effort in terms of the human input on addressing those blips and inputs. On the right-hand side, we do have our optimized controls framework, which has 12 different segments. These slides, of course, will be shared after this, and to take us right through the different elements across define, operate, monitor, and assure, which are the core elements of what we're trying to achieve with our internal controls ecosystem. With that, I think we have a further poll question, which I would like to put before you this afternoon. Okay. It's an interesting one, and it's a nice kind of a segue into what Masson is going to talk about. And it talks about how regularly do you reassess process level risk to inform changes to your control framework? Do they sit on the shelf and get never reviewed, or are you really proactive in reviewing those and taking those apart, taking those risk assessments apart and understanding, have you got a fit for purpose control? Does the risk remain valid, or does it just sit on your risk and control matrix forever without being reassessed for appropriateness and value in terms of what the effort and investment has offered the organization? So if we could get some answers here, it might be a nice segue into Mason. So Siobhan, okay, so lots of organizations more than once a year probably being along the lines of what I expected. Some organizations do it less than once a year, but it's good to see actually that all organizations or all our attendees this morning have been assessing their controls on some basis, some less so than others, but it's really good to see that. And with that, I think I will pass you across to Massim, who's going to take us through an agile approach to risk assessment, control selection, focusing on optimization and focusing on the risks that matter to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Geron. So I will now be talking about the Future of Controls Agile Sprint methodology that we use to help our clients in developing and improving their controls. Our Future of Controls methodology comprises of 6 stages, in addition to the planning stage. And this methodology allows us to identify and develop controls that are tailored to the needs of our clients and are fit for their purpose. We begin with the planning stage for the sprint, and we start with developing a sprint plan. This is stage 0 on the screen. The sprint plan helps us in identifying the key stakeholders, risk domains, and key activities. Moving on to stage 1. Now, after a sprint plan is developed, we begin by conducting a desktop review of all available documentation. This includes reviewing existing risk and controls, any existing process maps, and supporting documentation to identify at a high level any process or design issues or challenges faced by the client. We would then move on to the next stage, which is stage 2 on the screen. And this is where we obtain a deeper understanding of the process and identify sub-processes. This is done by conducting process workshops with process and control owners and performers to agree the process taxonomy. We also make use of insights and benchmarking data that we have available at our disposal, and we use that to perform a comparison and identify process improvement opportunities. Based on our assessment, we will then identify any process pain points. We then move on to the next stage, which is stage 3 on the screen. And this is where we identify and prioritize risks against each sub-process. This is done in consultation with the process owners, and the outcome of the exercise is a risk universe that is validated by the client with risks prioritized based on impact and likelihood. Stage 2 and stage 3 is something that we normally do with the main stakeholder or process owner. And the idea is simply to have a high-level understanding of the processes and risks. And it basically prepares us for the next stage, which is stage 4. And in stage 4, this is where we invite all the relevant process owners and their team members to what we call a hothouse. A hothouse is an interactive discussion with the stakeholders to identify controls that are either currently in place or should be in place. This is done with the risk landscape as a reference to ensure that there is a key control identified to map a key risk. Based on the mapping of risk and controls, the control landscape is then discussed and validated with the stakeholders. We then move on to stage 5, where we aim to optimize and bring in the value proposition. We start by identifying how existing controls can be further enhanced. We use a controls toolkit here to explore the possibility of exploring either existing automation opportunities, using analytics and monitoring tools, or introducing new technologies, or enhancing the existing manual controls. We will further explore stage 5 in the next few minutes. Moving on to stage 6. This is essentially our formal closing of the sprint. And the objective is to obtain final validation of what we have proposed as control enhancements, revisit and update objectives if needed, obtain and implement any feedback from attendees, and provide an update for the next topic for the sprint. I will now move on to my next slide, where I will talk about some of the common challenges that organizations face, and we believe that the future of controls approach will help overcome these challenges. Now, I will not go into the detail of all these challenges, but will briefly speak on the first 3. The first one is lack of reliable data. What this means is that data being generated or extracted is not reliable because of absence of controls over master data and at the processing level. This is a common risk due to the use of manual spreadsheets and heavy reliance on manually converting data into information. A recent example with one of our clients where data was being passed through multiple systems and various formulas were being applied. And despite the number of manual controls in place to verify the accuracy of data, it was still difficult to ascertain if the data being generated is reliable. The next one is lack of insight in source data points and related systems. This is where there are weak controls or absence of controls at the source data, which is at the master file level. What this does is it affects management's ability to rely on the output because of weak reliance on the accuracy of source data. Now, this is a very common issue or common challenge where there are multiple source points and control performers are not aware about the actual source of the data. We saw this at one of our clients where there was an analytics tool being used to fetch data from multiple data sources. It was then used further to produce a report that facilitated with the revenue recognition accounting entry. Now, because of the complex methodology around producing this report, what it did was it affected ownership and accountability over the accuracy of data, as I said, because of multiple source points. It also delayed problem resolution in situations where there was a discrepancy because of lack of sophisticated controls to clearly identify the data flow. The next one is insufficient understanding and knowledge of controls by control performers. Now, this is a situation where there is a control in place and it is suitable to effectively perform a control activity. However, the person responsible for performing the control does not have the understanding or knowledge required for effectively executing the control. Now, potential reason could be that the control performed did not receive adequate training on performing the control. And this is also a very common theme that we have seen across our clients. And to cater that, we do offer client labs and workshops to help control owners and operators with how to properly perform control and document controls. And to summarize, we believe that our future of controls approach will help organizations overcome these challenges and improve their control environment. I'll move on to the next slide, where the objective is for us to demonstrate how we can use our future of controls methodology, and we will be using ESG as an example. Now, reporting around ESG has evolved significantly, and organizations are now expected to report on different metrics to disclose how they're impacting the environment and its surroundings. Therefore, organizations now need to have robust controls to ensure that there is accurate monitoring and reporting related to ESG. We help organizations develop their ESG compliance plans, specifically around CSRD, which is the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. We also support clients by conducting rapid assessments to help them understand how mature their existing processes and controls are in relation to ESG reporting. We also provide clients with support in developing their processes and controls for a better and efficient ESG reporting. Now, for the purpose of demonstrating our example, we'll categorize these ESG reporting metrics into 5 categories. The first one being environment, social capital, business model and innovation, leadership and governance, and human capital. And for my demonstration, I will use the greenhouse gas emissions as an example. And I would like to move on to the next slide, please, for that. Now, using the greenhouse gas emissions as an example, we will start with an ESG reporting metric related to reporting of CO2 emissions from direct and indirect fuel consumption. Now, applying the FOC approach, we identified that the client was relying on controls that were heavily manual, required them to manually take meter readings from different locations and consolidate them centrally. What this led to was a high cost of performing the control because of the human hours being used in noting and consolidating the readings. Consequently, the existing processes and controls had a high chance of error due to the nature of activity being heavily manual and heavily human dependent. As you can see on the screen, the existing controls that a client had was around performing a manual reconciliation between the source data and the final output. And then on top of that, continuously verifying the calculations that they had to manually do every time they were performing that activity. Now, by using our future of controls methodology and talking about the 5th stage that we spoke about, which is around optimizing the controls, we make use of our controls toolkit that you see in the center of the screen. And what it does, it tells us, it gives us different options, for the first option being around exploring the possibility of standard automation. And what that means is, that we try and eliminate the manual element by exploring existing automation possibilities within the existing ERP or within the existing system that our clients have, and making sure that they're being used to the optimum potential. If, for example, there aren't any standard existing automation possibilities available, we then move on to our different options, which in this case, the second option is that we try and make use of analytics or monitoring tools to facilitate with data analysis and minimize the need for manual activity. This could be done using tools like ACL or Tableau, to give you examples. The third option is we try and bring in or introduce a new tool or a technology to automate a repetitive task by using robotic process automation tools or system access controls. The last option that you see, option 4, is where we try to uplift the existing control activity by introducing a better preventive or detective control. Now, for our client, we understood that the existing meters that they had did not have the functionality of automating the process of extracting a report from meter readings. Therefore, what we did was we performed an analysis of calculating the cost of performing a control and then identifying that the benefits of opting for smart meters outweighed the cost of implementing the smart meter. By deploying smart meters, it would also allow the client to remove the need to perform the manual reconciliation between the meter readings and the eventual spreadsheet. because the current process that we identified was that the CO2 emission readings, once consolidated, had to be manually converted and computed. Therefore, we also recommended deployment of a digital tool that my colleague Ritika will be talking about shortly. What this tool did was helped our client automate the process of converting and calculating the emissions data. And this also allowed us to eliminate the recurring manual control of verifying the calculations, which had to be done at each activity level. Now, to summarize, the future of controls approach allowed us to help our clients transition from manual controls that were high effort, prone to error, to automated controls that are low effort and have a better outcome. And what we eventually presented our client with was an outcome tailored to them and involved considering implementation of smart meters, using a digital tool to perform their calculation, rather than relying on manual calculation using spreadsheets. And what that led to was automated controls, lower cost of performing controls, and controls that are more efficient and robust. And with that, I'll hand back to Kiran. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Massam. Really appreciate your time and attention to this. I really like this approach. I mean, it does help organizations focus really on the risks that matter to them and not just taking a library of controls and operating them, just for the sake of it, but really taking that risk-based approach to control prioritization and selection. And then when you move into this, using this control toolkit here, it does really kind of expand the mindset to what do we currently have available in terms of our existing technology ecosystem. What do we have that sits on top of those ecosystems? I think Massa mentioned ACL and Tableau, but you can use Power BI, you can use SQL Server and those types of tools to analyze and report controls and control options, and then digitally extended controls. I mean, Blackline comes to mind here, a very common control tool that's used for reconciling and workflow automation. I mean, there's lots of them out there, and I think with that, it would be great to welcome Ritika to the call. And Ritika is going to, sorry, before we actually do that, we do have a poll question. So Siobhan, if you could put the poll question up. Okay, this is a good one as we kind of move into the technology area. So how do you record, store, and report on your controls? So we have a couple of options here. A GRC tool, becoming more and more common, different levels of sophistication, of course. A basic application, I mean, are you using an Excel or a Word to document, report, and store your controls and report them afterwards? Have you developed something in-house in terms of an in-house tool or database, or have you got some other approach to recording, storing, and reporting on your controls? And I know it kind of, suppose, talks to what we saw earlier on in the polls in terms of controls maturity and use of technology within that framework. So Siobhan, it would be good to see if we got some responses. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised. I must say that most are still using Word and Excel. Ritika, I think our attendees today are going to be delighted to hear from you in terms of what a tool like Alteryx can bring to the dynamic here. So thanks very much for that, Siobhan. And Ritika, over to you, and maybe we can hear something about a very interesting tool and concept.
Sure, thanks, Karan. All right, hi everyone. So, in the world of data management and analysis, there definitely exists a significant gap between various systems that we employ for different purposes, whether it's an ERP, HR, payroll, CRM, or any other system. Now, these systems often operate in silos, making it challenging to seamlessly exchange information between them. Now, to bridge this gap, we have traditionally relied on Excel, a familiar tool that many of us have used for years. However, this approach necessitates an individual to extract, transform, and format data, which can, introduce a potential for error and inefficiencies. Now, consider this typical workflow. Data must be manually, extracted from one system, then inputted into Excel, and then manipulated as needed. Now, this process is not only time consuming, but also prone to human error that can jeopardize the accuracy and reliability of data. Now, we can address all these challenges using Alteryx. Now, one of Alteryx's key strength lies in its ability to handle large volume of data with ease. Whether you're working with millions of rows or complex data set, Alteryx can efficiently process your data without compromising performance. Now, scalability also ensures that you can tackle even the most demanding analytical task with confidence. Additionally, Alteryx provides features for ensuring data integrity throughout the entire data pipeline. Now, from your input control checks that validates data as it enters the workflow to output control check that verifies the accuracy of your processed data. Alteryx definitely helps safeguard against error and any inconsistencies that definitely provides peace of mind that your data is accurate and reliable. And lastly, but not the least, automation. Automation is definitely one area where Alteryx shines. Now, by automating repetitive tasks and workflow, Alteryx enables organization to streamline the operations that can help increase efficiency and free up valuable resources for more strategic work. Now, before we move on to the demo, I believe it will be helpful for us to introduce ourselves to the world of Alteryx. So, moving on to the next slide, please. All right. So Alteryx really has a user-friendly design that offers both low-code and no-code functionality. Now, this means that regardless of your technical expertise, you can effortlessly dive into data manipulation and analytical tasks. With its intuitive drag and drop interface, complex data operations become manageable even without extensive coding knowledge. Now, let's understand some of Alteryx's standout feature. So, one of the strength of Alteryx lies in seamlessly joining data from various sources. Not only that, it also facilitates mapping and combining different data sets that can help provide comprehensive overview of your entire data landscape. Alteryx also comes equipped with robust tools for data cleansing and correction. Now, this can help correct some data, formatting types like dates, numerical values, or string. There are also a couple of flexible options available in data handling as it offers wide range of options for data input and output that supports various data formats. Another notable aspect of Alteryx is its iterative workflow process, which enables users to refine and iterate on data manipulation steps efficiently. Now, this iterative approach empowers users to adapt swiftly to changing data requirement and explore different analytical scenarios with ease. And lastly, scalability. This is a key consideration with Alteryx as it can handle substantial volume of data efficiently that ensures optimal performance even with large data set. Now, the scalability ensures that Alteryx remains responsive and efficient regardless of the size or complexity of the data being processed. Now, we're going to go to the demo very quickly here. And before I do that, I would like you all to get a blank Alteryx workspace, and I'm going to share my screen very quickly here. All right. So now having a blank Alteryx workspace is like having a big whiteboard in front of you. But instead of markers, we would be using the tools that help work with your data set. Now, in middle of this blank canvas, you start by placing your data. Now, this could be your Excel spreadsheets, your databases, or any other source of information you have. Now, each of these is like container holding valuable data that you want to explore. Now, working with these tools is really easy. So, depending upon the function that you want to use, you simply would need to drag and drop different tool. Now, these tools are like magic wands that perform different tasks on your data. For example, if you need to clean up a messy information, there's a tool for that. If you want to combine different sets of data together, Alteryx has a tool for that. So when you connect these tools together, you're actually building a path for your data to follow. It's like connecting the dots on a picture, but instead of dots, you're actually connecting your data so that it can be transformed and analyzed further. But what's interesting is that, like I mentioned previously, you don't need to be a computer expert to use Alteryx. It's designed to be easy for anyone to understand. And if you make a mistake or want to try something different, no worries. Alteryx lets you go back and change things around without having to start from scratch. And once you have finished working on your data, Alteryx help you share your finding with other. Now you can create reports, you can create charts, or even interactive dashboard that help tell the story of what your data is saying. Now let's proceed with a demo and witness how Alteryx transform a typical reconciliation process. Um, So now picture yourself in a shoe of a professional who's tasked with reconciling your company assets and liability number. Now this is a task that often feels like navigating and working with different Excel or CSV file. Now traditionally this exercise would involve a couple of manual steps, right? Right from copy pasting data from one Excel to another Excel to wrangling with multiple formulas, which can definitely be prone to manual error. Now, in terms of our demo here, our data reconciliation process involves three main input files. So there are two CSV files and one Excel file. Now, these files contain, information about company assets, liability, and audit data. But for demo purpose, these files are basically stored on my desktop. But it is important to know that Alteryx can actually connect to various data sources, including your databases. So our goal here is to reconcile the data from first to file with the aggregated data from the third file, ensuring consistency and accuracy across your data set. Now, to achieve this, we first prepare and blend the data using Alteryx. Now, this involves joining your asset and liability number based on a unique identifier. In our case, it's actually a company code ID. Now, by automating this process, Alteryx eliminates the need for manual data manipulation in Excel, significantly reducing the risk of error. Now, once the data is combined, we focus on ensuring that data is clean and consistent. Now, Alteryx provide data cleansing tool that identifies and replaces any null values with zero, ensuring that your data is uniform and ready for analysis. Now, this tool also remove other formatting issues such as date format, any punctuation issues, or any currency format, to name a few. So now once we have aggregated the data set, the next step is to use couple of formulas, just to simplify our data set further. Now we can do that by using a formula tool that can help summarize information at a desired level. So in our case, it's total assets and liability per company. And finally, before we move to the reconciliation, we merge all three data set using a join tool, creating a single comprehensive data set for comparison. Now, we then compare total asset and liability from each data source using a simple formula and flag any discrepancies or exception. Now, these flags serves as an indicator of any potential issues, allowing user to focus their attention on resolving discrepancies efficiently. So finally, the outcome from this workflow is basically, so if I just move to right side a little bit. Yeah. So finally, the outcome from this workflow is basically two Excel files. So one containing the exception for review, another containing the reconciled information. Now, this structured approach to data reconciliation ensure accuracy, efficiency, and transparency in your reporting process. Now, this is a very simple example that we have used for demo. However, we are more than happy to demonstrate more business cases specific to your needs and process challenges.
Thank you so much, Ritika, for
Yeah.
that. I personally think a lot of my clients would be interested in knowing about this tool, but I do have some questions if that's okay.
Yeah, for sure.
So if you were to scroll on the left-hand side where you have the data sources,
Yeah.
I see in your example you have used Excel and CSV files. If I may ask, what are the different types of data sources that Alteryx supports as input?
Sure. So, Mason, there are a variety of options available when it comes to importing data into Alteryx. So, it effortlessly handles various data formats ranging from your conventional spreadsheets, CSVs, JSON, XML, PDF, or even text files. So, Alteryx, not only that, Alteryx also integrate with databases like SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, that provide direct access to data stored within these systems. And also a very important feature, also Alteryx extends its compatibility to cloud-based storage solution as well, be it your Google Cloud Storage, Salesforce, or Google Analytics. So just to quote an example, in our ERP environment, Alteryx can efficiently pull data from systems like SAP that can, streamline processes such as inventory management or procurement. So of course, Alteryx seamlessly, is able to integrate with multiple options. So depending upon the process that you are using, so Alteryx does have that compatibility feature available.
That's good to know. You also mentioned that you used a data cleansing feature of Alteryx.
Yeah.
So how robust and advanced is the Alteryx data cleansing tool? And what are the specific types of data issues that it can address and rectify?
Sure. Sure, that's a very interesting question, Mesam. So Alteryx data cleansing tool is actually quite powerful as it can tackle variety of data issues that commonly arise during our data preparation task. So one of the main thing is it's great at handling missing values. You know how frustrating it can be when you are working with a data set and there are gaps all over the place. So with Alteryx, you can easily identify those missing value and decide what to do with them. So whether it's filling them in with a default value, dropping them altogether, or substituting with with something else. Another issue that I can think of is formatting error, right? So sometimes you'll have dates that are all over the place or currency value that are in different format. So Alteryx data cleansing tool can definitely fix those error with these. And let's not forget about duplication. So I think it's very common to end up with duplicate records in your data set, especially if you're combining data from multiple sources. So Alteryx makes it easy to identify those duplicates and clean them out. So, you're left with a clean and streamlined data set to work with.
That's impressive. And then obviously a person like me who does not have an IT background, I see that Alteryx has this visual feature as well, where
Mhm.
someone like me can actually see where my data is flowing.
Yeah.
But I do have a question. So let's say if I'm the one developing the workflow and if I make an error, does Alteryx notify the user immediately, or do I actually have to find out after I execute the entire workflow?
Sure. So by default, Alteryx will run the entire workflow and then display any error or issues encountered during the process after it's done executing. However, if you prefer to be notified immediately when an error occurs, you can actually configure Alteryx to send you alerts or notification in real time. So this way, as soon as any error occur during your workflow execution, you will receive a notification and you can address the issue promptly. So of course there is a flexibility available to manage error efficiently, of course based on your preferences and needs.
Very nice. And just one last question from my
Mhm.
side.
Yeah.
In terms of using Alteryx, are we required to manually execute the workflow each time we're supposed to do this activity, or does Alteryx also have the functionality of scheduling these workflows on an as automated workflows?
Sure. So Alteryx do offer functionality for scheduling your workflows, which I feel is super handy for streamlining your processes. Now, it's instead of having to manually execute workflow each time, you can actually set up schedule to run them automatically at a specific time or interval. So I think it's a great feature to have to save on time and ensuring your workflow stays up to date without constant manual intervention. So I'll probably quote an example here. Let's say you have a daily data processing workflow in Alteryx that pulls in sales data from multiple sources and then further clean it and generate reports. So instead of having to remember to run this workflow every day, you can actually use that scheduling feature to automate. So you could schedule it. You can automate to run at 6 in the morning, and even before you get into the office, your reports are actually ready and waiting for you to start the day. So it's simple and yet a very powerful way to streamline your workflow management.
That's really impressive. Thank you so much, Ratika, for answering the questions.
Of course, I think those were really interesting questions. So thank you, Mason, for asking those. So on that note, I'm going to hand over back to Kiran to facilitate our conversation further. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ratika. Really good to see the power and the optionality around Alteryx. A couple of questions have come through, which is good. A lot of them actually around Alteryx. One question came through. A question: could you open the output files for demonstration? Have you got functionality to open that?
Yes. So once you actually execute the workflow. So the files are actually saved on the designated folder. So it'll give you the results right away. So it'll only take like a couple of seconds for you to run that workflow, and your output files are actually saved on a designated folder.
So they get transferred to your shared drive
Yes.
or your local drive, and you can
Yes.
open it up from
Yes. So you
there.
have flexibility in terms of where you want to save that data set as an output.
And do those outputs then, are they an Excel output, or what's the format they're typically output into?
Again, you have a lot of flexibility available. You can output into Excel, you can output into Power BI, you can output into Tableau, even in PPT. So a lot of flexibility available.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. We had another couple of questions here, a couple of very specific questions. We had a question around the functionality of Alteryx versus a tool like Power BI. Without going in depth, what's the kind of the main kind of differences there, if you can provide some color on those?
Sure. So, Kiran, I think Power BI is more to do with your data visualization, whereas Alteryx is more to do with your analytical skills, your analytical capability, right? So, Alteryx can actually use a raw data and further clean it and further put a lot of analytical functionalities or features and then create an output. So, Power BI, in my opinion, is more to do with how you want to visualize your data. It has to more to do with your reporting per se, whereas your Alteryx can actually manipulate a data set, read that data set, understand that data set, and then create a meaningful reports out of that data set. So it can definitely help tell a very meaningful story based on a raw data to a clean set of data. So Alteryx, in my opinion, provides more features than Power BI.
Yeah, I mean, I think the optionality around being able to extract from different
Yes,
sources,
yes,
manipulate, and then output into different sources, that's really eye-opening, I suppose, for a person who spent a lot of their career stuck in spreadsheets and
of
having only
course,
the ability to match spreadsheet to spreadsheet. Now you can take PDF to CSV files to different SQL files, put them all together, manipulate them, and put them out into whatever format. Right, that's really powerful. And obviously,
definitely.
as Massim and yourself discussed, the ability to schedule those
Mm,
functionalities then on a weekly, monthly basis. For those of us, for those of us that are using those of us that are using spreadsheets a lot, this is really kind of the new frontier to getting our controls that are operating there, fit for purpose.
yep.
We do have another couple of ones. Alteryx seems to be the most interesting one. Question, very generic question actually. How easy is it to manage and maintain Alteryx? We know it's difficult to maintain spreadsheets, but if we're trying to make our
Yeah.
lives easier here with Alteryx, I mean, I hope that the answer here is something along those lines.
Sure. So, Kiran, I think once Alteryx is deployed within any organization, I think managing it internally is quite feasible since it's user friendly, right? And it offers comprehensive documentation. So, I think with proper training and understanding of its key functionality, the team can actually handle routine maintenance tasks. And what has come very handy in my experience and couple of engagements that I've done in the past. So I think leveraging the Alteryx community is immensely beneficial. So this community basically serves as a platform for user to share best practices or troubleshoot any issues or gain insights from some of the experienced users. So I think engaging with this community allow teams to stay up to date with latest trends, techniques, and best practices in terms of how efficiently we can use Alteryx as a tool. And another thing is, I think, documentation. So that plays a crucial role in managing Alteryx workflow. So Alteryx do provide extensive documentation when it comes to covering various aspects like installation, configuration, workflow designs, or troubleshooting any issues. So I think utilizing this documentation is also very handy. And I think as it comes to any software, staying up to date is also very crucial. So Alteryx do regularly releases updates, which may include bug fixes, your performance enhancement. So of course keeping the software updated is also quite crucial so that you are able to reap benefits from latest improvements.
Yeah.
So not a high maintenance tool for sure.
Yeah, I think we did have a question here around just popped in around the audit trail and the auditability of Alteryx. I think you've answered some of that there. That talks about
Yes,
it.
yes.
I don't know if you want to add anything on that, but in terms of the question here is on a specific team and our technology and data risk team do and would be auditing tools like Alteryx for the purposes of external audit from a compliance perspective, and also I suppose from a more practical perspective, the workflows that Ratika has referred to. So Ratika, anything else to add there?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is. I think you are as a user. I'm able to maintain my audit trail very well. Like I mentioned, documentation plays a crucial role. So it's important that all our workflows are documented well. So Alteryx workflow is really able to tell that story from where I'm actually sourcing my data set, what kind of manipulations that tool is doing, and what sort of output I'm kind of I'm able to retrieve from that workflow. So of course in terms of documentation, I believe Alteryx tool comes very handy, and it's also is able to sort of maintain the entire audit trail, and not only that but also manage the entire version control that we sort of face as an issue in terms of if we are maintaining our data on Excel. I think version control is definitely one big challenge that I have seen on many of my past engagements. So audit trail, version control issues, version controls, and good input and output control checks are in place in terms of using Alteryx tool.
Yeah, it's a great question. I suppose when you think about spreadsheets and how they evolve in businesses, it's typically to meet an objective.
Yep.
Typically to meet an objective, and the person who operates that spreadsheet then moves on to something else. The spreadsheet evolves.
Right.
The person who originally had it, changes role, and all because the question is, how does a spreadsheet operate? But having that documentation and workflow, etc., in the background really is a powerful component of Alteryx, and it's really good to hear that that the documentation in there is sound, and we have been relying on it. Yeah, I think we do have a kind of a related question just coming through as well from one of our attendees around Alteryx and the usability. Is it just internal audit? For me, it's operates right across the three lines of defense. I think, Ritika, you've worked in financial services quite extensively in the first line in terms of using Alteryx to improve efficiency. It certainly resonates in the second line in terms of controls and monitoring. And from an audit perspective, using the analytical capabilities, etc., in there can really add to the toolkit of those of us who operate as internal auditors from time to time. So it does have that auditability, it does have the workflows, does have the documentation around the different activities that it performs in analyzing and reporting out data. So just did we have any other? I think that's all the Alteryx questions so far. So good to see those coming through. Massim, a couple of questions for you. I know you've done a lot of work in this area, so a bit of a generic one. Sorry, we do have a further Alteryx question just popped up here. It's a very specific question, Ritika, and maybe you need to see the data to be able to comment fully on it. But in general, the question talks around, does Alteryx have the capability to take data from different risk registers in Word and Excel, etc.? So this is certainly sound a little bit complicated, that have similar headings but perhaps in a non-consistent form and create one large risk register.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like I mentioned previously, there are a couple of input, formats that Alteryx is compatible with: your Word, your Excel, your PDF, text files. So, of course, if your data is not really in a consistent manner, Alteryx we can actually, look at the input files in detail and see how best we can streamline it. But Alteryx have a good functionality to sort of extract your information and further clean it and really get into the format that you need. So there's a use case there, definitely a use case there.
Yeah, I think what we've been saying is that, and the demonstration would have shown that you've joined a CSV file, which is typically one when traditionally when I saw a CSV file, I kind of went, oh my God, I can't use that for anything. What we're saying now is we can draw the CSV file, reconcile it to an Excel file using the tool, and give an output then that is readable in whatever format fits the reader, whether it's PowerPoint, whether it's Excel, whether it's Word. And that's really powerful and really efficient, actually. I mean, in terms of the amount of time we've spent over our lifetimes operating Excel, I mean, it's a great tool. We love it, and we're all very familiar with it, but sometimes it can be a little bit cumbersome. Thank you very much, Ritika. Really good insight. Massim, to yourself, there was a couple of questions here which would be good to understand some of your perspectives around. The first one is, what is your view on ESG and CSRD controls? Very familiar with the fact that you operate in that space from time to time and have done an amount of work there. So good to hear your thoughts.
Thanks. It's a good question, and because corporate sustainability reporting directive is an evolving topic, and organizations do fall in the criteria. So what we do is, and from a controls perspective, future of controls is definitely something that we have applied and we can apply to help our clients, because I think right now the goal for organizations is to go for limited assurance, but then eventually the goal will be for reasonable assurance. So what we are trying to do with our clients is help them reach the reasonable assurance target. And the way we are doing that is we are helping our clients develop a CSRD plan. We're also helping our clients with maturity assessment, just to exactly tell them where they're standing and what exactly do they need to reach that eventual goal. And we also are providing a service where we help our clients develop controls that are fit for purpose and that will allow them to get to that reasonable assurance stage. So, but yeah, definitely future of control is something that we are heavily using, and more than happy to have a discussion if anyone wants to reach out.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting the breadth of ESG and the concept that one size doesn't fit all from an ESG risk and controls perspective really kind of fits into that agile sprint methodology that you talked us through in terms of identifying what the process taxonomies are that are relevant for the specific organizations, across different industries. Then figuring out what the risk appetite is, measuring your risk versus that risk appetite, and then understanding what's your optionality around the controls and where you want to invest your controls capital to operate your framework. I think that methodology really gets to the nub of that in terms of helping organizations to understand what they need to address, the risk that those objectives present to the organization, and then pinpointing the controls and the right controls that are efficient and provide the quality assurance that are needed by organizations. Another question for yourself, Massum. I think I was probably expecting this one. How have you seen AI used for controls?
Yeah, that's a very evolving topic. So again, AI is a concept that is growing rapidly, and every organization, in my view, should benefit from it. And that's why I believe one of the reasons why the AI Act has been rolled out as well. And the purpose of that is to just have guardrails and transparency around its use. Now, coming back to the question, using AI for controls is something that we are working towards, and the idea is to provide, and the idea is to use AI to provide better service to our clients. This could be, and these are some of the examples that we are working on. One of the examples that comes to mind is using AI to right size a client's control library. And what that means is using the AI technology and identifying the number of redundant controls by using AI scripts to read through huge control libraries and identifying redundant controls. We have been working with a client that has controls about 4,000. Now imagine a human being going through the control description of those 4,000 versus AI doing it in a fraction of that time. So that's one example where we have and we are planning on using AI. Another example that comes to mind is the possibility of automating control testing using AI. And the way that would work is that we configure the AI script in a way that the AI knows exactly what's required in terms of testing a control, and also documenting and archiving that control in a GRC tool. So no, definitely there is scope.
Yeah, and I think
from an AI perspective.
we have seen some use cases in clients where they're using AI to automate some functionality around reconciliations and just kind of leaving the person then or the control operator with the reconciling items. And we've also seen some use cases where clients are using a combination of AI tooling and RPA tooling to automate parts of their processes. I mean, unfortunately, so far, we probably haven't seen a silver bullet, and we might never get to a silver bullet, but certainly the opportunity with AI is to make our lives a little bit more efficient with investigation of use cases and technologies, which we're seeing more and more of across organizations. However, there is the risk piece here as well. I mean, you've referenced the AI Act and what that means for organizations. So having that lens across what you're doing also as you start to invest and thinking about more and more about AI when it becomes more common and more kind of more cost effective to operate and implement. I think we've probably got time for one more question, and this one, Ritika, is for yourself perhaps. How widespread is the use of Alteryx?
So I think Alteryx is definitely a widely used platform, for a couple of things like data preparation, data blending, doing advanced analytics. So I think its popularity has been growing, and specifically in industries like finance, healthcare, retail, telecommunications, bank. So there are a couple of use cases that I can think of. So first is of course your data preparation and blending. So Alteryx definitely allow users to prepare, clean, and blend data from multiple sources, of course, without the need for coding. So that's number one. Then it is quite handy in terms of doing your predictive analytics and data science. Then the third one that I can think of is your fraud management or your risk management. So Alteryx can actually be employed for fraud management and detection, and because it can analyze patterns and anomalies in your data set. So I think it's very crucial to have as a handy tool specifically for financial institutions and insurance company to detect any fraudulent activities. And then lastly, I can think of a supply chain a use case here. So Alteryx helps optimize supply chain operation by analyzing various factors such as demanding forecasting, your inventory management, your transportation logistics, or supply performance. So there are quite a few examples that I've quoted that sort of help understand how Alteryx is widely used, and there are a lot of business use cases that are available across multiple industries.
Yeah, I might just add to that. I've seen it used in retail. I've seen it used
Yeah.
in technology. I've seen it used in FS. So lots of clients using it. Interestingly enough, we did come across a couple of scenarios where the tool was in organizations and people didn't know it was there. So
Yeah.
one of those scenarios where the asset had its investment but wasn't being properly used across the organization for both processing and from a controls perspective. So I think in terms of usage, it's becoming more common, but maybe not to the fullest extent at the moment. Okay, so we're just gone out of time here. So I might take the opportunity to thank both Ritika and Masum for their contributions today, and to thank all our attendees today. So we had some great numbers. So really proud of the fact that you were able to put this together today. We are very proud of the Deloitte Future of Controls vision and what we're doing to contribute to clients on their controls journeys. We'll aim to schedule further sessions with clients in this format. As I suggested, the slides will be made available and the video will be made available after the call also. So thank you very much for your time, and we do hope that you have a great rest of the day. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.